Welcome to Flunking the Written, a fully spoiled Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast in which two Uber fans break down every episode of the show. Join Kimberly and Megan every Tuesday as they overanalyze each scene and discuss the Buffyverse at large. Now let's meet up with the Scoobies and get into this week's episode of Flunking the Written.
What can I say? I flunked the written.
Alright, Kim, it's the one we've been waiting for. Surprise!
Yay!
Written by Marty Noxon, directed by Michael Lang. On Buffy's 17th birthday, she and Angel must prevent Spike and Drusilla from resurrecting the Judge, a demon who has the power to destroy humanity.
See, and that one's pretty good without giving a lot of stuff away.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and say, in this episode, there is really lot of stuff that was in the script that did not make it into the episode.
I was wondering.
Like pages and pages of stuff.
I feel like that happens a lot with like the really big episodes.
Yeah. There are just like full scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a lot of the scenes, there's just pieces of conversation that got left out like it usually is. But there's 3 or 4 entire scenes that didn't get in.
All right. I'm excited.
And so that'll be fun to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just need to get into this one because we got a lot to talk about. So it opens up with Buffy in bed, and she kind of wakes up in the middle of the night and grabs her glass of water and sips at it, and seems like she needs more water, so she goes out into the hall, and as she's walking down, we see Drusilla with a blood-stained lip trailing behind her. And then she opens up the door and enters into the bronze, to which I put in my notes, dream times.
Yeah, and this is just the foreshadow dream.
Yeah.
Because, like, almost everything that happens in this dream is foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. We also get, for the first time in a long time, we've kind of had a drought, we get a song. It is Anything by Sean Clement and Sean Murray, featuring Carrie Howe. And I'm just going to read a little bit of the lyrics for you, because I think it might be also hinting at something. But it starts with, take me over, I'm lying down, giving in to you, I'm a hurricane, I can't describe this feeling, oh.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, a little bit. There's several songs in this episode.
Yeah. We get music again. I'm so excited.
So in the dream, Buffy runs into her mom, who is holding a plate and a cup and says, "Do you really think you're ready, Buffy?" And then drops the cup. And then she sees Angel.
Mm-hmm. You skipped Willow and the monkey, though, Kim. How dare you?
Yeah, well, she saw Willow and the monkey. I don't really connect Willow and the monkey to the episode. In my mind, that's the only part that doesn't really have anything.
Okay, well, I'm about to blow your mind. Are you prepared?
Are you? Okay.
So this is showing a different side of Buffy's prophetic dreaming, because it's actually an event that already took place, but it's an event that Buffy was not there for. But Willow is with a monkey, and she is speaking French to the monkey. And if you translate what she says, she actually says, "The hippo stole his pants."
Oh. Okay. So, gotcha. Well, I don't know French. And I didn't bother to translate the French. So
I did. Oh, man. But yeah.
Okay.
That is a very significant scene to me, because it's a monkey, and that's all I really cared about. The episode could have ended there, and I would have been like, great episode. Bravo. 10 out of 10. So yeah.
It is a really good episode.
Yeah. So yeah, Angel shows up.
And Drusilla appears behind him again. She's just stalking people in the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Buffy heads toward him, and right when she's about to reach him, Drusilla stakes Angel in the back, and, Buffy screams his name and reaches for him, and right when their hands are about to touch, he turns to ash, which is lots of foreshadowing. And then Drusilla wishes Buffy a happy birthday.
It's very sweet of her.
Yeah. Buffy wakes up in bed, terrified, and scene.
And scene. So after the credits, Buffy is like pounding on the door at Angel's apartment and immediately starts asking if he's okay, and like just completely in just a state of panic. And he's like comforting her, and she talks about her dream and what happened, and he says that he's right here and that everything's going to be okay. She talks about dreaming about the Master and how that kind of was foretelling what was going to happen with the Master. And again, he's just kind of there to say it's okay. Even if she is alive, we'll take care of her. There is a beat where Buffy says that they never saw Drew's body, and, that's always funny to me because...
She's a vampire.
She's a vampire. But I'm sure that's been beaten to death by many fans, so we'll move on. And then they start kind of kissing some more, and then they kiss some more, and then they kiss again.
Yeah, and they have a discuss about Buffy has to go and she can't tear herself away, and how it's getting a lot harder to leave and not go further than they have.
Yep.
And Angel agrees that, it has. And it's a pretty hot scene.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of it.
Well,
yeah.
And there's a couple bits here. Of course, you have Angel saying that you still haven't told me what you want for your birthday. And she's like, surprise me.
Yeah.
And the I like seeing you at bedtime line, which is adorable.
Yeah. And then the next scene is Buffy and Willow, and they're at school walking through the courtyard, and they're discussing that conversation and how Buffy said that. And they kind of start talking about if Buffy's going to sleep with Angel, and Willow encourages her to a little bit. And Buffy kind of decides that she will.
Yeah. There's an interesting bit of dialogue here from Buffy where she talks about how want isn't always the right thing to do. To act on want can be wrong. But then she says, but to not act on what if I never feel this way again? Which really, foreshadowing the decisions that they make at the very end of the episode. And this is when Willow brings up Seize the Day from way back in Welcome to the Hellmouth.
Carpe diem. You told me that once.
Fish of the day?
Not carp. Carpe. Means seize the day.
Buffy's like, I think I'm going to seize it. And Willow's just wows a lot.
Yeah. And then Buffy brings up Oz. Wants to know if there's anything going on between Willow and Oz. And they have a cute little conversation, and Willow's worried because he's a senior. And Buffy's like, yeah, my boyfriend had a bicentennial. And Willow's a little reluctant, and Buffy kind of tells her you can't keep waiting for Xander. And then Willow leaves to go talk to Oz.
Yes.
Which, again, is the most adorable conversation.
Yeah. And I really...
These two don't do conversations that aren't adorable.
Yeah. I really think it's 90% of what works for me in this relationship is just the fact that Allison and Seth are such good friends and have just such fun times playing these characters and playing off of each other and doing all of these sweet little extra bits and making each other smile. There's a lot of just little, especially I noticed in this scene what Seth does. There's a lot of little looks that he gives Willow during this scene, and I'm just like, aw, that's super cute.
Well, she goes up to him and kind of, opens the conversation talking about his band, and then he assures her that he has no groupies, because she had brought up that he probably has a lot of groupies. The most hilarious part is Oz kind of tells her he's going to ask her out, and he's nervous. And she's like, well, I'm going to say yes. And he's like, awesome. That provides a comfort zone. And then he does, and she says no, which is just a hilarious conversation. Willow explains that they're giving Buffy a surprise party and then invites Oz to go.
Yes.
Which is very brave of Willow.
Just the cutest little ask, too.
Yeah. Well, both of the asks were. But it's very brave of Willow. It's very un-Willow-like. And then Willow walks off, and he watches her go. And then we have Cordelia and Xander. Okay, so 75% of the stuff I mentioned that was cut out of this episode is Cordelia and Xander.
Oh, okay.
So much stuff. Mostly Cordelia. But there's some other
I
stuff.
feel like
that's
she
cut out,
gets
but,
the
like,
chopping
so much.
block. I feel like people love to write for Cordelia, and then they get to where they actually have to edit the episode together and realize, oh man, we can't have this much Cordelia. But I think people love writing for Cordelia.
Yeah. Well, not Buffy, Xander and Cordelia are talking at Cordelia's locker, and she mentions that she's bringing chips and dip to the party, and Xander is kind of like, we're both going to the party. Why don't we go as, each other's date and make this public? And she's like, no, I'm ashamed of you. You're not ashamed of me, but I'm ashamed of you, which is pretty bitchy when Xander is being all kinds of sweet, But then he's like, okay, fine, never mind, and stalks off.
Yes.
And there's a little tiny part after this that was cut off where, like, Cordelia closes her locker, and in the episode, Xander walks off. But then in this part, Cordelia says, "Let me think about it. Can I pick out your clothes?" And Xander says, "For the party," and Cordelia says, "For pretty much every day." And then they split up. So that little part was cut.
Aw. So one thing I noted in this scene, and I always look for the little extra details that I've never noticed before, but Cordelia is holding two books that she puts away in her locker. She is holding the health class textbook, which is another little nod to the theme of the group of episodes we've been in, and she's also holding an Allure magazine. So I just thought that was a kind of neat, like, made sense for her to hold, but if you look at this idea of attraction and sex as the main theme of what we're focusing right now, and she's holding a health textbook and an Allure magazine, that kind of nudges those themes along as well.
Yeah, placement.
I always assume all of that is intentional, and if it's not intentional, then they just got happy accidents, but those both seemed very intentional to me. When I saw them in her hand, I was like, yep.
Yeah, I think that was probably intentional.
So when Xander's stalking away, he runs into Giles in the hall, who asks, is everything ready for the party?
Absolutely. You ready to get down, you funky party weasel?
Here comes Buffy. Now remember, discretion is the better part of valor.
You could have just said, shh. God, are all you Brits such drama queens?
And then Xander teases her with a pre-birthday spanking, and Jenny's like, yeah, no, Xander. And then Buffy tells Giles about the dream, and it's cut out of the actual episode, but right here, she mentions that she went by Angel's to check on him, and Xander's like, yeah, that was a line. I just dropped by to see if you're dead. And then y'all started making out, and Buffy's like, no, I didn't go over there to make out. And then says, well, I found that he was okay and I was relieved, so naturally. And then says, someone stopped me. Jenny says, so Angel's all right, kind of moving the subject along.
Okay.
And Buffy mentions that she's got a bad feeling that it wasn't just a normal dream. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to what was we go back into what was in the episode where Giles asks us if she thinks it was more than important. So that part was cut out.
Mm-hmm. There's a bit. There's just some back and forth, and Xander makes another joke in Xander fashion and all of that stuff. But there's a point at the end of this scene where Buffy explains that, it's Angel, which automatically equals Maxie Wig, and walks off. And then they hold on Giles for a bit, and he looks quite concerned by what he just heard. It's a nice little nod. And of course we know what the final scene of this two-parter is. And so it's nice to see that they're kind of foreshadowing that he's going to be super stern and super judgmental of Buffy. And then we actually know where that ends up. But it's a nice little moment of him just being like, well, that's probably not healthy.
Yeah. And then, okay, so Xander and Buffy are gone, and it's Jenny and Giles. And they have an almost page-long scene here that got cut out. And I don't know, should I read it? Because, it's pretty important stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so here's the scene. Jenny says, what, you really think Buffy's having premonitions? And Giles is like, it's possible. Jenny says, I guess it makes sense. All of her senses are heightened. Why would her intuition be different? And Giles says, precisely, it's not unheard of for the Slayer to start having prophetic dreams and visions as she approaches adulthood. And Jenny says, adulthood, Buffy's 17 tomorrow, Giles, don't rush her. Giles says, I'm not the one rushing her. While I'm loath to say it, the fact is the Slayer rarely lives into her mid-20s. It follows that she'd exhibit signs of maturity early on. Her whole life cycle is accelerated. And Jenny says, still, you should be careful about treating her like a grown-up. Like this thing with Angel, have you even talked to her about it? Giles says, I suppose I try not to pry. Jenny's like, well, you probably should. The way she talks, it's clear she has intense feelings for him. Giles says, yes, they're friends. Jenny says, they're more than friends and you know it. And then there's kind of a pause and Giles is like, I'm not her father. Jenny mentions that she looks up to you. She'll never say that, but she does. And I think she's in over her head. She can make some bad choices here. Trust me on this one. And Giles says, I'll keep an eye on her, but right now I'm just worried about getting her the right birthday present. And that whole scene was cut out.
That's a lot.
Oh, there is a lot in this episode. I'm going to do this more than once. There's a lot of stuff cut out.
Well, and I think it's always been, a theme of Buffy that her life expectancy is shortened, and so she has to grow up faster. But I don't think it's ever been spelled out quite this clearly, where Giles literally just says, no, she has to grow up fast because she doesn't have a choice because her life expectancy is so short and what she has to do is so important, basically. Mm-hmm. It's also interesting, and I can't get into a huge amount of it here, but it's also interesting to think of this conversation when Giles knows what happens on Buffy's 18th birthday, right?
Right.
So it's a lot. There's a lot there.
This scene seems so important to me with all the information and hints and stuff in it because it tells you a lot about Jenny and how worried Jenny is about the way Buffy feels about Angel. She's like, trust me, this could be bad.
Yes.
Because she's the only one that knows that it could. I know she doesn't know what could happen to Angel, but she knows that something bad could happen. Mm-hmm. So it I thought this episode was so important that I always read through the script before I watch the episode when I'm prepping for this podcast. And I read through the script, and when I was watching the episode and taking notes on my little notebook, I noticed that it skipped over this scene, and I was like, okay, this has to be in there. So I didn't make my little note that it was one of the cutout scenes. I didn't do that until way later in the episode because I was like, it has to be in there later.
Yeah.
Like they just moved it to somewhere else. But no, they cut it out.
Yeah. It's crazy. All right. Well, from there, we cut to the factory, and we see it's Dalton. Is that his name?
Yes,
he
Dalton.
Comes in with a box and asks where to put it, and we see Spike rolling in a wheelchair, scars on his face, says to put it on the table with the other gifts. And I made a note here that we have a complete reversal of roles between Drusilla and Spike, where Spike is now the injured weak one and Drew is full powered, and it's Drew in this episode is amazing.
Oh yeah. She's so great in this episode.
But yeah, Drew is planning a party and
for her birthday.
Yeah. Spike is just fed up. He's over Sunnydale.
He has that line that Sunnydale is cursed for us. Angel and the Slayer see to that. And I've got that it's kind of over dramatic because, not a whole lot has happened to them in Sunnydale.
I made a note about that specifically because before this moment, he had always been focused on Buffy, right? His rants and blow-ups had always been about the Slayer. And very rarely has he really even bothered with Angel. Like, you really think about the timeline, there's some jealousy that has occurred with Angel, but Angel really hasn't done crap to Spike. It's all been Buffy. And you're right that the stuff that's happened specifically from Buffy is all, fairly minor compared to the way that he's reacting. But he is in a wheelchair, which is never fun.
Right. And I guess she could be responsible for putting him in the wheelchair. But that's the only thing. Everything else is just her stopping his plans, not doing anything to him. I feel like this is kind of over dramatic because I'm like, not a whole lot has happened so far, Spike. Calm down.
It's going back to what Xander was saying about Brits.
Yeah.
But yeah, Drew's talking about that she has good games for everyone, and then she licks Spike's wound in just like the most visceral, just I love it though. I love the physicality of the Spike Drew relationship. I've always adored that. Just the way that those actors play all that up. The choices that they make when kind of interacting with each other, it's a visual feast, and I love it. But it's also a similar like thing to when she cut his cheek in the very first episode that they were in and licked it. Like this is an affectionate gesture from Drew. And before we go on to anything else that's actually like super important, I just want to talk about Drew's dress and how I love Drew's dress. And I'm good now. Drew's dress is really, really my favorite.
It's a really good dress. I like it too. Well, and then Drusilla gets really, really excited about her presents and, kind of childlike. Can I open one? Can I? Spike says, you can take a peek. And she looks and says that it reeks of death. And it'll be the best party ever. Mm-hmm.
So she mentions when Spike asks, she mentions that it's going to be the best party ever because it will be the last. And this is my first problem. I mean, Drew's kind of crazy and does whatever she feels like on a whim anyway, so I can kind of buy it. But I don't really like the judge for a couple of reasons. He's kind of a throwaway villain of the week that's just there to confirm that Angel is in fact evil. But also, it just doesn't seem like something that Spike and Drew would do.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, if they get rid of all the humanity in the world, what are the vampires going to eat? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying.
Yeah. It just seems out of character for them. But still, love Drew in this episode.
So the next scene, we have Buffy and Joyce in the kitchen. They're finishing breakfast. And Buffy just opened a birthday card, and they're talking about how Joyce is going to take her to the mall on Saturday for her birthday and, buy her stuff. Mm-hmm. And she mentions that she is very interested in getting her license now that she's 17. There's a couple of lines that are cut out. They're not real important. They're just kind of more of the same, except for one that I really like, and I wish they had left it in, because Buffy is responding to her mom saying something about all the trouble she's been in at school. And Buffy says, I try, I do, but Principal Snyder has it in for me. And Joyce says, I know.
Oh.
But you behind the wheel, it worries me.
Yeah.
That I know is like, support from mom that she really does know that Snyder has it in for Buffy. Because he does. It's not just a teenage girl saying, oh, my teacher, my principal have it in for me. They don't like me. He really does.
Yeah.
And mom is like, yeah, I know. And I kind of wish that they had left those lines in. Mm-hmm. But then Joyce says what she said in the dream, which is, do you really think you're ready, Buffy? And drops a plate. And then Buffy kind of disappears because she freaks out about it. But Joyce is still talking to her and tells her to grab the broom.
Oh.
And that's cut out too, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I like the cut that they chose. Like, immediately you have that, and then cut to Jenny in her classroom. And so everybody's just in that moment of panic, being like, that was in the dream. No, that was in the dream.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Jenny is in her classroom, and we see a figure walk in and read her name out loud from the board. She kind of jumps and turns around, and it appears they know each other because he's talking about how she hasn't written and is ignoring her responsibility to her people.
And we're all like, what?
Yeah. They kind of dance around what this is all about. They mention a curse, they mention a girl, and all of this. And then finally, Jenny just blurts it out and says that Angel still suffers. And this is where she says that he does make amends. He even saved my life. So good on her for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the uncle shoots back and says, but he destroyed
our most beloved
daughter and killed every man, woman, and child that touched her life. Now here's my note on this that I love, because here you're thinking, oh man, this is all Angel, right? He did all of that. He was responsible for very little of that. Darla is actually responsible for 95% of that. Because not only is she the one that brings the gypsy girl directly to Angel to kill, but she is, in fact, the one that leads the massacre on the rest of the people. And there's even a scene later on in Angel where she is talking to the father of the gypsy that Angel killed, and is mentioning about how all of his family is, like, back in this cart, and that they'll be protected as long as he removes Angel's soul and all of this stuff. And then it's Spike who actually, like, pops out and burps after having feasted on the rest of the gypsy girl's family, and then Darla ends up killing the father. So, like, Angel actually has very little to do with that massacre.
And he's the one that gets cursed, but I think it's because he's the one that actually killed the girl. And apparently, like, it never really explains what was so special about her.
Yeah.
But she was very special to the people.
She was the most beloved daughter. And I'm just like, in that scene with Darla later on, she definitely mentions other daughters that that man has. And I'm just like, man, those sisters must have been real upset.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't even just that family. It was that whole tribe.
Yeah.
She was the most beloved. So maybe she was meant to be a wise woman or something like that. I don't know. Then he kind of gives her a lecture about forgetting who she is and being loyal to her people, and basically tells her, no matter what you must do, you have to take this girl from him. He can't be happy. And Jenny says that she'll see to it. And we're like, oh no, Jenny bad? Is she going to hurt Buffy?
Jenny bad.
It's kind of what you're left with.
Yeah.
So, next, there are 2 scenes that are completely cut out. Actually, 3. 3 in a row. There are 3 in a row that are very cut out. And I'm going to go through them real quick.
Okay.
So, we have Cordelia and Harmony, and they're walking to
Harmony?
class.
Oh my god.
Yes, Harmony. And we see Xander and Willow sitting in that little lounge area. And Cordelia sees them, and then she tells Harmony, she's like, okay, so I'm having a total random thought. Xander Harris, is it just me, or does his shirt almost match his pants? And Harmony looks and is like, well, why do I care? And Cordelia says, well, if you look at him a certain way, is he vaguely cute? Harmony looks and she's like, oh yeah, I'm hot for Spaz Boy. Are you tripping, Cordelia? Then Cordelia does her little fake laugh, and she's like, oh, you thought I was serious? I was just testing you. Good one, good one. Then the next scene is Xander and Willow at the snack machine. And Willow is talking about how we're all set for the birthday party. Cordelia's bringing snacks and stuff. And Xander's like, yeah, she said she was, and that was very thoughtful of her, don't you think? And then says, you know, Cordelia, she's not as horrible a person as we once thought, is she? I mean, obviously she's helpful sometimes. And Willow's like, yeah, maybe. And Xander says, but you would never, like, be friends with her, would you? And Willow's like hang out and take Cosmo tests together? And Xander says, yeah, I mean, you know, choose to be friends with her and hang out. Willow says, I don't know, she's better, but she's still Cordelia. And then points to them in the hallway where Cordelia and Harmony are there talking, and they're joined by a couple of other of their little friends. And back to Willow and Xander, and Willow says, like, for example, what is this shrieking thing that they do? They just saw each other yesterday, and now watch. Cordelia is going to model her new outfit. And it goes back to them, and Cordelia indeed models her new outfit by spinning around. And Willow says, note the reaction, like Cordelia invented clothes. Willow says, you know, they're not bad people, Xander. It's just we're of 2 worlds. And then she pauses for a second and goes, and theirs is bad. Xander kind of lets it sink in and says, right, of course you're right. What was I thinking? So these scenes are basically Cordelia and Xander trying to get their friend group, fill them out on what they would think about this relationship. You know, I like the Cordelia and Harmony scene better than the Willow Xander scene. I feel like Willow's a little harsh for her character in that. It could have been performed well enough, I think, but yeah, I mean, we just know the words. We don't really know what it would have looked like. Yeah. Willow, I've noted a couple times, has been the one that's been the most, like, extending invitations to Cordelia and kind of wanting her to be
part of their friend group in the past. So it does feel a little odd for Willow to have that firm of a mindset that's anti-Cordelia, but I get what they're going for, and I like that they
had them kind of test everybody.
Had they kind of testing the waters to see if maybe people could get used to this idea.
The rest of the scene, Oz joins Xander and Willow to talk to them, and Oz is like, "Hey," and Willow says, "Hey, so tonight?" And Oz says, "I'm there. I'm feeling really surprisey," and asks, "Can I pick you up?" And it shows Xander watching them, unsure what's going on. And Willow says, "Yeah, that would be here." Then she writes her name down on a piece of paper and hands it to him. And he goes, "I have your address." And Willow's like, "You do?" And he says, "Excellent." Then he moves off, and Xander looks at Willow like in shock and is like, "Are you going on a date?" And Willow's like, "Yeah, it's a date." And Xander says, "Shouldn't you meet him or something? Are you sure you should be giving some stranger your address?" And Willow says, "He's not just some stranger. He's my friend. He took a bullet for me." And Xander's like, "So? I'd have taken a bullet for you. Nobody offered me one." Yeah. So, like I said, there was a lot cut out there.
Xander, you're the worst. Okay.
So a lot of stuff that's furthering relationships a little bit and giving us some insight that they, I guess, just did not have time for in the episode.
Yeah, that would have been a lot.
But yeah, those 3 scenes were cut. And I was reading through the script book and I was like, I don't remember any of this. I don't remember ever seeing this part. I guess it's just been that long since I've watched this episode, and then none of it actually happened. None of that's actually canon. Okay, so the next scene was actually in the episode. I'll let you do that one.
All right, so we are at the library, and Buffy is talking about Joyce's plate drop and how it was just exactly like how it was in her dream. Xander and Willow run in, and Willow's all super excited and says it's happy birthday, Buffy, and then realizes Buffy is not in the mood, and they kind of all explain what's going on, and Giles comforts her that the dream with the master was something that she was able to overcome, so, just, don't stress too much about it. Xander has the lovely line of, "Yeah, you ground his bones to make your bread," and Buffy's like, "Well, that is true, except the bread part." And Giles suggests that he'll just read up on Drusilla and that she should meet back with him at 7. And Buffy's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do until then?" And he's like, "Well, go to class, do your homework, have supper." And just like, "Oh, right, be that Buffy." And she leaves, and Xander and Willow are all kind of upset, and Willow's talking about canceling the party, and Giles is just the best.
Yeah, he's like, "No, we're not canceling the party. We're going to give this to Buffy. She deserves a party."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the line where he's like, "There is no good time to relax, but Buffy turned 17 just this once, and we're having a party," is just the best.
Yeah.
Aw, so cute.
The next scene is Buffy arriving to meet Giles at 7, and Miss Calendar walks out and is like, "Buffy." They do a really good job in this scene of making Jenny look suspicious.
Yeah. The Jenny misdirect is real.
Yes. And, I mean, the first time you see this episode, if you don't know any more of the storyline, you're probably thinking Jenny is a bad guy. Because they do a really good job. They do it subtly, and you're like, "Yeah, Jenny, no, don't do that." So Jenny basically says, "Oh, no, Giles wanted me to tell you that he's got to meet you someplace else. Let's go. I'll drive you." And Buffy's like, "Okay." And so they leave to go, and it continues in the car while Jenny acts all suspicious. And Buffy's like, "We're going to the Bronze." And Jenny's like, "I'm not sure. I'm just following Giles's instructions." And then they stop because Buffy sees something that looks suspicious, and she jumps out of the car and sees vampires, including Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, "Yeah, you are always stealing something." And they start fighting, and we go to the inside of the Bronze, where all her friends are kind of hiding around a pool table to jump out and yell surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And then back to Buffy and the vampire fighting, and then they break through a window in the bronze and land on the floor, and she dusts him in front of everybody, which everyone there already knows everything except Oz.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the only one that doesn't really know, about the supernatural world they all live in. And everybody just kind of stares, and Cordelia jumps up and yells, "Surprise!" And then, Angel asks if she's okay. Giles is like, "What happened?" And Buffy tells them, and then she's like, "What are y'all doing?" They explain that it's a surprise party, and she's so touched. She's like, "Really? For me?"
I will say, though, she's like, "You did all of this for me? That's so sweet." But when she says that's so sweet, she turns to Angel specifically, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm sure Angel had very little to do with this. This was 90% Willow.
Yeah. And then we see Willow and Oz, and Willow looks at Oz as like, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, but did everyone just see that guy turn into dust?" It's done so perfectly. It's just like, it's done so perfectly.
Oh, and it's so great. Like, his just willingness to be like, "Oh, that's what's been going on." That explains so much. I mean, he just immediately, like, you can see the gears working. He's just like, "Oh my God, this has been the answer to everything."
Pretty much. Then Jenny comes in, and she's carrying a box, just like the boxes that are Drusilla's presents.
Mm-hmm.
And they find a release on it and open it and look into it, and it's an arm, which then tries to strangle Buffy. And a couple of things to notice when this happens. There's a little scene where everyone who's watching Angel and Jenny and Giles and Buffy around the table where this box with the arm is, like, Buffy opens the box, the arm jumps out and starts trying to strangle her, and then it shows everyone's reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing you see is Oz kind of push Willow behind him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's immediate and automatic, and I love it.
Yeah, there's actually, like, there's a scene where Cordelia kind of grabs for Xander, and then Oz stands protectively in front of Willow, and it's just like the nice little couples being paired off situation there. I think especially we see this again and again with Xander and Cordy. Like, if they're allowed to, like, reflect on what they're doing, they're like, "Ugh, well, this is dumb. We shouldn't be doing this." But, like, instinctually, they tend to, like, seek comfort and grab on each other when they're scared or when they're concerned. And so that was a nod I noticed. And then, of course, Oz being all protective boy. So Angel kind of wrestles the arm back into the box, and everyone kind of takes a moment to recover. And here we have a moment with Angel where he says that it can't be, she wouldn't. So at this point, I guess he's fully accepted that Drew is alive, and he recounts the legend of the Judge.
Which is basically a demon to purge the earth of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And Giles mentions that he can't be killed. An army was sent against him, and all they could do was dismember him. And they scattered all the pieces and buried them in every corner of the earth. And there's a little scene here that was cut out when Angel, it's not like real important, but it's kind of funny. And Angel says the pieces were scattered, buried in every corner of the earth. And Sanders says, "You think they left his heart in San Francisco?" And everybody kind of glares at him. And then Oz, it kind of whispers to Xander, I thought that too. Which that got cut out, but it was, fairly funny. And then Jenny and Buffy mentioned that all the parts are being brought back together by Drusilla to put the Judge back together and bring forth Armageddon. At which point Cordelia is like, "Is anyone else going to have cake?" And nobody does, so she goes to get cake.
Cordelia is my queen.
Yeah. I mean, you can have cake while you discuss Armageddon.
It's just like,
okay.
When else? I mean, when there is no good time to relax. We've already established this. Cordy just takes it all in stride.
I'll go out on a limb and say discussing Armageddon and the end of the world is probably the best time to eat cake. You don't have to worry about the calories then.
Yeah. So Jenny suggests that Angel needs to get the arm out of here, needs to, take it far, far away, and it has to be him because it would take months. And this is where I have another problem with the Judge. How does this work? Because couldn't he just be assembled without that one arm?
Well, I think maybe because he's magically assembled and like the magic doesn't take place unless all of him is together.
But you can open the individual boxes. I have another problem with the fact that all the boxes like fit together so perfectly and then becomes like this man-sized door opening thing that he just walks out of. I'm just like, I'm pretty sure they were trying to prevent that from happening, so I don't know why they designed the boxes that way, but you know. But then like, what's preventing
really good point.
What's preventing him from just like stitching himself back together normally? Because that's kind of his superpower. And you think the judge minus one arm, still pretty formidable.
Yep, magic. I'm gonna go with magic. That's the answer, magic. Because I don't have a better
arm
one.
on its own is enough to choke Buffy pretty harshly.
Yeah. Well, they decide that Angel's gonna leave tonight as soon as possible, and Buffy's like, "But it's my birthday." And can we just point out the horribleness of all the stuff that happens to Buffy on special days? Like, she just cannot have a special day. Her birthday, prom, graduation. I realize those things haven't happened yet where we're at, but like, special days always get ruined for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jenny kind of says, "I'll drive you to the docks." So she's trying really hard to like get Angel gone. She's probably very relieved that now she doesn't have to do anything to Buffy.
Yeah.
You know.
For all of the weirdness with Jenny, she is actually doing a really good job of trying to get these people separated in a peaceful manner, right?
Yes. Like, because you know she doesn't want to hurt Buffy or well, she can't hurt Angel. He has to suffer.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to hurt Buffy. And you're kind of left with the question, if she had to, would she?
Yeah, it's enough to be like, how far would she be willing to take this? And there's still like the layer of she doesn't really fully understand what the consequences are. So there's just a lot of interesting bits to chew on. I really wish that they had planned better for Jenny and had this idea a little bit more fleshed out ahead of time and didn't just kind of shoehorn it all in towards the end of her arc, because I think that it would have been more interesting to have a little bit of this suspicion linger earlier on in the series. I think they could have just a couple of minor shots. That's all they really needed. Just something to make her look a little shifty, because it really cranks up in these two episodes where she's automatically just super sus, and before then she's just been Jenny.
The next scene is the factory again. And Dalton is confessing to Drusilla and Spike that he lost the box. And he blames the Slayer. And Drusilla takes his glasses off and crushes them under her foot and tells him to make a wish because she's going to blow out the candles, and has her very sharp fingernails where she's going to put them in his eyes. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of terrifying.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and then Spike is like, well, you might give him a chance to find it. You know, he does have a brain.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And picks up his broken glasses and puts them back on his face and tells him to hurry back. Because she is insane.
Oh, it's so good. I love her so much. So we go to the docks and we have Buffy and Angel Sadwalk. And I've researched this as best as I can. And from what I understand, this is the first time that we hear the Buffy Angel love theme. And I heard it, and my heartstrings were pulled, and it was all bad for me. But this is obviously incorporated a lot in a bunch of different ways. The most notable of which is, of course, Close Your Eyes at the end of the season. And you can't, I can't hear this song without immediately flashing to Becoming Part 2. Anytime I hear it anywhere in the series, I'm just like, stop it. But this, as far as I can tell, is the first time that we have their love theme.
And Angel gives her a clotter ring and explains its significance to his people. I'll point out here that, like most girls who were huge fans of Buffy, I had a clotter ring. I still have one that my husband gave me that has the birthstones of our children in it.
I actually
not the original one.
I actually have never owned a clotter ring. I am a not true Buffy fan. Just flip the table. I'm not. It's over, guys. It's over. No. I remember there was a couple of times I was just like, oh, that would be kind of cool to own. But I think for me, I like the significance of what the ring represents more than I like it as a fan of the show. So for me, much like it was with your husband, I feel like it would mean so much more if I had a significant other give me a Claddagh ring than it would be just me like, oh, I'm a big Buffy fan, I want a Claddagh ring. I like the messaging of it. But can we talk about how terrible this ring is as far as a subtle, just kick in the teeth to all of the fandom who pays attention to this ring throughout the series, or throughout this season specifically, because it is such a just horrible representation. Angel's feelings for Buffy just vanishing. Once, and we'll talk about this at length in the next episode, once he loses his soul, that ring is reversed except for certain points where he's specifically like manipulating Buffy, and it's awful.
Like the one he wears?
Yeah. Because he explains, you have to wear it with the heart facing this way. That means that you belong to somebody. And in the very next episode, it's immediately reversed. And then it's reversed again when he's like giving that horrible speech to her after the fact. And then it's bad. Okay. It's so mean.
Megan, this is why you do not lose your Buffy fandom card, because you don't have a Claddagh ring. Because even though, I've had several over the years that I bought myself and wore, and you're right, the one my husband got me does mean a lot more. Yeah. But I have watched through this entire series over a dozen times, and I have never watched it closely enough to see that detail about the ring.
Oh, it's bad.
So most definitely, yeah, you keep your Buffy card.
So they talk about how they don't want to do this, and Buffy tells Angel not to go, and they kiss, and Angel's...
Oh, wait. We have to add jewelry to our Buffy counter.
Oh, that's true.
Our Buffy jewelry counter, we have to add one.
Yep.
I kind of feel like it's the ring, and the Claddagh ring is like a huge thing, and it should be 2 counters. But she's going to add one.
Just add one. She technically gets another one later. Don't worry about it.
That one only counts as one, though. This one should count as more than one in my head.
This one counts as like 45.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and after they kiss, Angel starts to say what we assume is "I love you," but unfortunately they're attacked, so we'll have to wait for that. And yeah, Dalton redeems himself. He does get tackled by Angel, but Buffy's thrown into the water by another vamp, and Angel goes to rescue her. And it's just an awkward encounter all around. Like there's so many weird priority shifts in this, and I'm just like, okay, sure.
It's got in the script that we were originally supposed to see Angel pull Buffy out of the water, which I'm assuming would have been their stunt doubles, but obviously, because the instruction is we see this from way back at a good distance, if you know what I mean. So I'm assuming that is a nod to this would actually be stunt doubles jumping and all that, of course.
That's great.
Yeah. So then the next scene is Giles, Willow, and Xander in the library, and they're discussing that they should be back by now. And Willow mentions how sad it is that this is happening to Buffy on her birthday. And Xander comes up with this scenario about how it's actually a good thing because they would have never had a future, and does this scenario of what their lives would be like with Buffy being a Denny's waitress by day and a Slayer by night, and Angel in front of the TV dreaming of the glory days when Buffy thought the whole creature of the night thing was still sexy. And Willow's like, you thought way too much about this. And Xander just keeps it going about coming back to town in a private jet and taking Buffy out and all this. It's just like, wow, Xander.
It was funny because while you were listing some of those other scenes, I was just like, yeah, but there's definitely like a lot of stuff in this episode that I could see being way more important than that. but this could have been cut. We could have definitely cut this. I mean, it's funny, but we could have cut this for some of that Giles and Ginny interaction or something earlier on.
Yeah. Or the conversation between Cordelia and Harmony. Because I feel like that one was important. Like, Cordelia was testing
and
the water.
Anytime we can have Harmony is a good time for me. So the fact that Harmony was cut makes me mad.
And then Buffy comes in and explains that Drusilla and Spike's guys attacked them and got the box. And Giles was like, "Where's Jenny?" And Buffy says she took Angel to his apartment to get clothing. I had some here. So here we say clothing again. And I'm just going to point it out real quick and we can keep going. But she says clothing again instead of clothes. And Xander says, and we're needing clothes because... And Buffy's like, we got wet.
Yes!
Xander says clothes.
Yeah. Xander's normal.
Buffy says clothing. Yeah.
That's just our gauge of who's normal and who's not normal, is how you choose to talk about apparel.
Yeah. Well, and I just think it's something that Sarah Michelle Gellar does. Like, it's just something she does because in the script it always says clothes.
Oh, it does?
Yes, and she says clothing every time.
That's funny.
It's just like a little quirk of hers, and I'm always going to notice it. But, yeah. So Giles explains that he found some stuff out about the judge, and his touch will burn the humanity out of you. And Giles says that no weapon forged can kill him. Mm-hmm. Buffy says we need to find his weak spots. And they decide they're going to be researching all night, so they're going to do a round robin and all call call their parents to say they're spending the night somewhere else.
Yeah. A couple of notes. The most important thing that Giles says, and really the only reason the judge exists, is that he says that a true creature of evil can survive the judge's touch. Which is going to come back in a really significant way.
Such a sad part in the next episode.
But when Willow suggests that they do a round robin, and Giles, asks about it, and I'm just like, surely they've done this before.
Yeah, because they spent all night in the library way more than once.
This should not be a new routine for Giles.
Yeah. And then there's a little scene when Xander calls home first, and he has to let his mom know who he is. But Xander, and I mean, isn't he an only child? He literally said, "Hey, Mom."
Mm-hmm. That is one of the most significant moments, and it's just the thing that makes it the most sad is that he doesn't even seem surprised. He just seems kind of annoyed. He's like, "Yeah, Xander." It is one of the easiest throwaway,
But who else calls her mom?
Oh, yeah, it's and I have a lot of issues with Xander, and I've discussed a lot of the issues that I have with Xander, but I actually kind of love the fact that they downplay how terrible his home life is for the longest time and just leave little nuggets, because I feel like you have multiple steps of kind of coming to terms with your feelings with Xander, because there's a lot of times that I really love Xander, and then there's a lot of times that I really don't like Xander, and the times that I really don't like Xander, I'm able to pick apart more and more as I rewatch the show and think about all of the crap that Xander has to deal with and the kind of home life that he has, and the fact that one of his very first acts of the show was killing one of his best friends. I mean, it's really a very layered, intricate thing that you have to dig deep to kind of figure out where to approach Xander from. And I don't love his character, but I love analyzing his character, if that makes sense. He's kind of the reverse of Oz, whereas Oz I really adore in all aspects, but I don't really think about a lot. I think about Xander constantly, but I'm constantly frustrated when I think about it.
And Xander is a flawed character that you love anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a little scene here with Xander and Willow where Xander's like, I read this book already, and Willow says, I can't get over how cool Oz was about everything. And Xander very sarcastically says, gee, I'm over it. Mm-hmm. And in my notes, I just have, you had your chance, Xander. for a long time. Because you have no right to be jealous now.
Yeah, he will be, though. It's the worst.
And yeah. And then Willow says, "You're just jealous because you didn't have a date for the party." And Xander's kind of like, "Nope, I sure didn't." And you're like, "Oh." This is kind of a mature thing there, where Xander didn't like automatically be like, "Yeah, I did. It was courting."
Our standards for Xander's maturity are pretty low, but hey, we'll give it to him.
Well, yeah.
So Giles kind of meets up with Angel, who's also there helping out, and they both kind of look at Buffy, who's sleeping in Giles's office, and
I've got a lot to say about this scene.
I love it. Angel's just like, yeah, she hasn't been sleeping well, tossing and turning. Everybody just gives him like this look of, what did he just say?
Yeah, they all give him like judgy, suspicious looks. Xander, Willow, Miss Calendar, and Giles. And it's just like, yeah, y'all are being pretty judgy. I mean, like, she's a 16-year-old girl. I mean,
yeah, it is.
I just feel like they way overreact.
Well,
there.
and it's weird too.
And it's also not any of their business.
Yeah, it's weird too. It's not their business and all that stuff, but the idea of this episode is Buffy kind of deciding whether or not she's ready, right, to have sex with Angel. So to have this scene where it's in fact Angel being put on the spot and being the one that everybody's like looking at, I don't know if they were going for a like, there's the age difference thing they could be played out. I mean, I don't know. Like, even Willow kind of looks weird about it. But Willow's, like, been pro Buffy Angel getting it on already in this episode. I mean...
Yeah. And it's a very funny episode, but it also, when you think about it, it's a little judgy.
Yeah. But anyway, he explains that it's just she told him because of her dreams. And they all move on from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is weird. It's like, I could kind of expect... I mean, the truth is, Willow knows that they're moving that direction. Xander is constantly commenting about how they can't keep their hands off of each other. Jenny clearly knows that something's going on because she's getting all this pressure. And Giles has that scene at the end where he's like super, super like respectful and understanding of the fact that she had no reason to think that what they were doing was going to be bad, that was going to be wrong, you know? So, like, all of them have shown within these 2 episodes some understanding and some humility when it comes to the fact that, yeah, they're at that point in the relationship. And then you just have this kind of funny throwaway joke, which doesn't necessarily fit the way that the characters are acting at other points. So then we go back into Buffy Dreamtime. Buffy is in a white dress and walking through the factory, and we have a little glimpse of Jenny also walking through the factory. You just kind of see her from behind for just a second. And Buffy kind of walks up to where the different boxes are scattered and starts to reach for them. And we hear Drusilla, who is in the same dress that Buffy's wearing. And when it pans up to her, she is holding a blade to Angel's neck. So here's my thing about the Drew Buffy parallels of this. Obviously, they're both celebrating their birthday. They're both having this kind of weird dream space. Here they're wearing the same dress. Very soon we're about to have a transition where it goes from Buffy's face to Drusilla's face, like directly morphing. What I love about this is... There's the obvious where she's panicked the entire time that Drusilla is going to kill Angel. But Drusilla works as a representation of Buffy in the dreams. And we see those parallels played again and again. And then it like furthers that guilt that she feels in the second part when she has that conversation with Giles. Because she feels responsible. Like she should have known better. Blah this, blah that. You know, definitely... some mixed reactions that I have viewing it as a female and knowing that there's some messaging that I'm not crazy about when it comes to the Buffy Angel first experience with sex and the guy turns out to be an asshole the next day theme that they're playing with. But Buffy is setting herself up with these dreams to act out what she's seeing Drusilla do, because she is, in fact, the responsible party for quote-unquote killing Angel, right? Because when Angel loses his soul, you have this whole transition into Angelus, and we tend to pull those as if they're two separate characters. I have problems with that as well. I feel like we do that way too much, where Angel is Angel and Angelus is Angelus, and we don't mix those two. They're unmixy things when they're in fact very mixy things.
Well, see, they are two separate characters.
See, I have problems with that.
They are.
I have problems with that, though. And we'll get into this a lot. I have problems. I don't like the separation that we as a fan base do for that, when a lot of people aren't willing to do the same separation for Spike. They're not willing to do the same separation for Darla. We see other characters have experiences of having a soul and not having a soul as a vampire, and all of this back and forth. And you never really talk about Darla's arc as if she's like two different characters, but everybody speaks of Angel and Angelus as if they're completely separate, and they're not.
Well, I mean, part of that might have to do with how big of a character Angel is as compared to Darla.
Mm-hmm.
As for Spike, honestly, Spike's personality doesn't change as much as Angel's does. Like, Angel, when he is Angelus, is just pretty much cunning, cruel, evil vampire.
Yeah.
And when he's Angel, he's a good guy, hero, save the day, knight in shining armor guy.
Have you seen Angel the series?
Well, I have, but he's still, Spike is just Spike, and he's like bad and then he's good, but he's still Spike.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his personality does not change near as much as Angel's does. And it's probably something to do with, we get 6 years, well, from when he started the show, so I guess 5 years of Spike as a vampire Spike, and then we just have like 1 year of him with, well, 2 if you count Angel.
Yeah.
2 years of him with a soul, and pretty much almost all the time Angel has his soul, and there's just like a few months here and there when he doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Here's my thing.
But kind of different situations,
yeah,
I think.
Here's my thing, though. And here's the part that I love. And we'll discuss this more at length, I'm sure, as the series progresses. We'll have to get through this topic as fast as possible. But here's the thing I love, is that even though the show, and you're right, the show does frame it to where Angel and Angelus are very different beings, and Spike with a soul and Spike without a soul are fairly similar. And even though there's moments in the show itself where they're treated that way, and I have problems with that, because I feel like a lot of times as a viewer we tend to separate Angel with and without a soul too much and not separate Spike enough. But what I will say is David Boreanaz's performance shows that Angel doesn't believe this. That Angel doesn't believe that Angelus is an entirely different being. Angel takes full responsibility for what Angelus does, and doesn't have that same disconnect that a lot of other people have and a lot of the viewers have. Like, his turmoil involving Angelus and doing those things he did when he didn't have a soul are intrinsic to his character and part of him, and his way of playing that really shows that they're not separate at all, and that Angelus is always a part of him. And we get into that exploration a lot more in the Angel series, where you get this idea of there is constantly that demon inside of him, those urges inside of him that he's battling against.
Yes, we do. And I feel like in the Angel series we might beat that with a bat way too much. We'll get there when we start watching Angel 2, but yeah, that's we do hear that a lot.
Back to the discussion at hand, though,
yes.
Is that this is all set up and designed in such a way where Buffy is, in fact, killing Angel and bringing forth Angelus, and she is in fact Drusilla in all of these dream spaces, and you have this dream which really lays it
Which
on
is why they're
heavy, where they're
wearing
in
the
the
same
same
dress.
dress and everything like that. Yeah. It's good stuff. So Buffy wakes up shouting for Angel. He's there. He's just like, it's okay. And this is where we have that really close-in shot, tight shot of Buffy that transitions to, in fact, Drusilla in like the exact same framing and everything. It's a beautiful shot. I love it.
And Drusilla is at her party, and there's a whole bunch of random vampires there we don't know. And Spike gives her the last present when she takes it, and she goes to where the boxes are all set up to like fit together perfectly like a person.
Yeah,
And she puts the top one on.
I have a huge problem with this. Why? Who designed these boxes?
Yeah.
Oh,
She puts the head on top, and the boxes kind of all come together and glow and then open, and a guy dressed in black armor who is blue comes out.
And it's Luke!
And the description in the script says that there's something primordial about him, and he's not fully formed as a man. I don't really see that in the episode, but
no.
Yeah. No. And Drusilla says, "Oh, he's perfect, my darling, just what I wanted." Then we see Drusilla start to move toward him, and Spike's like, no, let's see what he does. The judge says, "You," and tells them that they stink of humanity.
Mm-hmm. The very first thing that we hear the judge say is that Drew and Spike stink of humanity, and I love that.
Yeah, you share affection and jealousy, and Spike is like, "Hey, we brought you here." And there's, in the episode, it goes straight from that into the judge, getting his first victim. But in the script, the judge replies to that with, "I have no alliances." And Spike says, "Okay, you want to go back in the boxes?" And the judge looks at him and then says, "You may live. You will help me serve my purpose." So this, is there supposed to be a way to put him back in the boxes? Does Spike know what it is?
I don't know, but you just gotta respect Spike for just not taking anything from anybody, because he should be full aware of how powerful this thing is, and just was informed, "Oh, I stink of humanity." He could totally just zap me, and still even in the episode, there's even a moment where he smacks his chest with his finger, and I'm just like, "Woo, Spike, pushing boundaries."
Yeah. The judge immediately backs off. And so you have to wonder, is there a way that this can be done? Does a person who put him back together have some kind of power over him?
I don't know.
I
don't know how that would have played.
Is there something we don't know?
I don't know how that would have played. It almost sounds like, in my head, it sounds like it would have been an empty threat, but the judge is just like, you're...
Yeah, possibly.
You're the ones that brought me back, whatever, or whatever. He's just kind of, moving forward on that. But, I don't know, I would leave it to Spike, if he was going to pull something like this, to also have an idea in the back of his mind and be like, okay, so this is how we deal with this if this all goes south.
Yeah, possibly. Or probably. And then we have where Drusilla gestures to all the people in the room and asks the judge if he'd like a party favor. And I'm like, well, I'd never go to one of her parties again. She's just, I could see her offering their minions, but she just offers up the guests that came to celebrate her birthday. She's like, "Party favor? Anybody?" Then the judge grabs Dalton and says he's full of feeling because he reads.
That's true. And, I read, and I'm always full of feeling when I read.
Yep, I read as well. He zaps Dalton and kind of just burns him.
Mm-hmm. So what's interesting is that Spike has this moment where he's just like, I thought you could just zap people, and later on in Innocence we see that, where he just kind of has little electrical magical tendrils that come out of him, and he's able to just absorb humanity around him. But earlier Giles is just his touch is what does that. So it's already like the lore is a little different than what Giles had explained earlier. But here he's just like, no, now I need contact. So I really think it was just an oversight where they knew that at the beginning it was going to require touch and later it didn't require touch. But then when they had Giles like explain how it worked, he just explained the touch part of it and not the part where he can just like burn you from a distance and be like, yep, you got humanity, now it's gone.
Yeah. So he does this, and Drusilla gets all excited. She's like, do it again, do it again.
Do it again! Do it again!
It's hilarious.
I love Drusilla. Have I mentioned I love Drusilla? I think you guys should know that I love Drusilla. So is there a scene cut here? I want to know this. Is there a scene cut here? Or does it go straight into the next scene that we see in the show?
No, it goes straight into the next
So
scene.
here's my weirdness about this, though, is that the next scene is in the library, and Buffy and Angel are exiting from the book cage area. Whereas previously, they were in Giles's office.
Good point. Well, maybe they walked across to get the weapons that they're coming out with.
But they don't have any weapons.
Okay, good point.
She's carrying a jacket, I think. It looks like it may be a bag, and there may be weapons in there, but later on, we don't really see any sign of her carrying anything. It's weird. I really thought something was cut here. I really thought when you said, oh, there's several things cut, I was like, oh, well, that explains that weird continuity thing that they chose, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't match up. But Buffy explains that she thinks she knows where Spike and Drew are, and Giles is like, well, you need a plan, and Buffy gives them the plan.
Angel and I go to the factory and do recon, figure out how far they've gotten assembling the judge. You guys check any places the boxes could be coming into town. Shipping yards, airports, anything. We need to stop them from getting all the boxes in one place.
Yes, actually, that's quite a good plan.
And the script says when she leaves, everyone kind of watches in awe of General Buffy.
Yay, General Buffy!
But like, we're kind of at least 2 or 3 episodes in every season we have General Buffy where she comes out. There's a scene here when they are in the doorway of the factory and Buffy tells Angel that this was cut.
Okay.
But Buffy tells Angel that she should go in first if her dreams are true. And Angel's like, yeah, that's not happening. And Buffy says, okay, what do we do if the judge is already put together? And Angel says, I'll deal with it. You keep your distance. And
I
they
love
stare
that.
at each other for,
Sorry.
What'd you say?
I love that.
Yeah. Buffy stares at him for a minute and then goes, we're going to have to get over this whole virtuous thing or we're both dead.
Mm-hmm.
And Angel's like, she's right.
I love it.
You're right.
I love it. I love it. I love it because of what I just talked about how Angel not separating himself from Angelus as much as other people do. Because I think a reading of that could be that he believes he has a better chance than Buffy does. And we talk about this a little bit later in the episode, too, where the judge is like, he's so excited that Buffy's there, right? He makes a specific comment about Buffy. He's just like, oh, the girl. Yeah, that's all. That's some juicy humanity there. Maybe not in so many words, but that's basically what he's saying. But yeah, Angel...
Even though he has a soul, he is a vampire.
Yeah,
Buffy does have more humanity than
Angel's just straight up like, no, I'm the one that would stand the best chance against the judge in that scenario. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. I kind of like how they're both trying to protect the other one, and then they realize they have to stop doing that or it's going to get them both killed, you know? And Angels then says, you know, if he's already assembled, we're going to retreat together.
There you go.
And then we go in. And Buffy says, I saw this party, and the judge, it shows the judge, and he's like sensing something.
All that juicy humanity.
Yeah, he looks up to where they are, and Angel grabs Buffy, and they're like, we got to get out of here. And it's too late. The minions are closing in, and they are caught and dragged before the judge.
Mm-hmm. I adore Drusilla's line about how she only dreamed that they'd come. Again, connecting that dream space, and makes me really wonder if, because we know that like Slayers can have shared dream space, but if like Drew, because we tie Drew and Buffy so much together in this episode, if like Drew like legitimately had a little bit of a shared dream space with Buffy in this through some magical ability that she has, because she has all of the magical abilities. And I'm willing to accept that.
And see, I think they could have like done so much more with this. I like the idea of her sharing dream space with a vampire.
Yeah.
Because that vampire was supposed to was like a potential slayer.
Well, and that's something that a lot of people...
had the potential to one day be a slayer.
A lot of people have called out Drew for being a potential slayer. A lot of people believe that she was a potential slayer just because of
I like that idea too.
But yeah, and this is where the judge is just like, yum yum Buffy, and Drew's like, she's so full of good intention. It's great. It's all great. Angel's like, take me instead. Spike explains how this works, because Angel's apparently dumb. And they say that, no, Buffy gets to go first, so Angel can watch, and the judge starts to approach Buffy, and Angel shouts, don't touch him, as she kicks. So here's the like, the weirdest gag bit ever. Because she kicks the judge back, Angel breaks away, and somehow, like, knocks down Spike's TV display thing that he has, which somehow knocks a huge hole in what looks like 2 feet of concrete.
Well, in the script, there's a description of him doing that.
Okay.
He summons all his strength, knocks the vampires off him, and dives for the chain that holds the televisions. Before the vamps get back to him, he yanks the chain from the ground, and the judge reacts to the groaning load of televisions above his heads and manages to jump clear as it falls and crashes through the floor.
Yes. The problem is...
It doesn't explain the televisions busting a hole through concrete.
Yeah, the problem is they're in a factory, and that is a hard floor to bust through.
Yeah. I mean, it does explain Angel doing that.
Also, so they jump down into the sewer, and then the vamps that follow are just the worst. Yeah. And they... Like, I'm pretty sure that they could have just, like, hugged the wall, and those vamps would have just walked by.
Yeah. Well, and they go in that room to hide in the sewer, and, like, the vampires pass them, and they come out of that room, like, 3 seconds later. It's like, you should have probably stayed in there just a little while longer, you know? So they come out, and they're... Oh, go ahead.
I have to do this next part. I have to. So yeah, they come out, and then they go up the ladder and outside where it's raining, so they get all wet again. Not for the final time this episode. It was so worth it. That joke's so worth it. I'm sorry, continue.
Okay. There's a scene here that was also cut out. Like I said, there is so much in the script that was cut out of the actual episode. So much. And it's Giles and Jenny, and they are exiting from a shipyard where they were there to look for the boxes. And they're just like, yeah, no boxes there. And Giles tells her maybe she should go home and get some sleep. I'll continue from here. And Jenny says, like, I could sleep, Giles. And he says, yeah, I feel rather restless myself. Buffy and Angel can handle themselves, of course, but... And Jenny says, I know, I'm worried too. And then they hold hands.
No.
So then Buffy and Angel enter his apartment. And he's like, you know, you're cold and wet. Here's you some sweats. Put these on. And he turns his back so she can change. And she's taking her shirt off and is like, ow. Mm-hmm. And so he, you know, was like, can I look? And she says, yeah. And he turns around and looks at it. And this is, again, a very hot scene. I'm sorry. It is. They kind of start talking about how he might have had to go away.
You almost went away today.
We both did.
Angel. I feel like I lost you. You're right, though. We can't be sure of it. You what?
I love you. I try not to, but I can't stop.
Me too. I can't either.
And they kiss, and like it's a kiss, you can tell some more stuff's about to happen. And Angel tries to stop her. He's like, maybe we shouldn't. And she's like, nope, kiss me. Mm-hmm. And they kind of lay down on the bed. And then we cut to a scene with a thunderstorm and a crash of lightning. And Angel wakes up and sits up on the side of the bed. And you can tell he's got a really bad headache. And he jumps up and stumbles outside into the rain and falls down in pain, calling for Buffy.
So does the script explain when he gets fully dressed? Does the script, like, detail that out? Because
it does not.
I just have, he's clearly in intense pain, so, you know, he gets completely dressed before running outside and then shouting for Buffy, who he was right there with.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that factory floor logic, you know?
It just says it's still raining as Angel, dressed now, moves into the street.
Yeah.
And that is
man.
the episode.
Yeah. So this final exchange, I feel like I need to dwell on it a little bit more because there's a lot in there. I like literally wrote down like every line of dialogue as I was watching that final exchange in my notes because I don't have the script book. Otherwise, I would have just been a big circle and been like important to the side.
But speaking of the script books, I've only been able to find them till the end of season 2.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it might not be something we have after the end of season.
I think they only have like the first few seasons because I've looked a little bit on the later seasons and it doesn't seem like they're available.
Now, I have one for a standalone episode, Once More with Feeling. Mm-hmm. But that's it. Just season 1, season 2, and then Once More with Feeling. I'm planning to try to find them online.
Yeah.
So I can keep going with that when we get past season 2, but I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah.
My value to these podcasts might be ending soon.
Wow, harsh. Okay, so this exchange between Buffy and Angel and the stuff that's mentioned beforehand, like this is the ultimate like will they won't they episode, right? And it starts off with this discussion between Buffy and Willow where Buffy's like, maybe I shouldn't act on one. Maybe that's a bad idea, and that going back and forth. And I've already talked about there's some messaging I don't like, and I'll talk about that probably a lot more in Innocence. That's, you know, the dangers of teenage sex, right?
Yeah, I don't like the whole sex bad.
Yeah, but
it kind of goes with.
This moment here, though, I think is interesting. The thing that redeems this for me on the whole sex bad front is that there are reasons that this relationship isn't going to work. Much beyond the fact that he has a curse with a really terrible loophole that causes him to turn evil after he has a moment of happiness. Even without that, there's enough evidence at this point, and certainly enough concern. We talk about that level of concern earlier that Giles has when she's talking about how panicked she is because it's specifically Angel. There's the age difference thing, which again, we talk about Buffy's maturity, so that kind of gets swept under the rug. But more importantly, there's the vampire thing. And even as an ensouled vampire, there is a lot about this relationship that has an imbalance, right? There's Angel's talked about the reason he's jealous of Xander isn't because he's particularly threatened, but because Xander gets to see her in the daylight, right? He gets to experience Buffy's human side, whereas he doesn't get that privilege as a vampire. It is still fine to have a casual relationship with somebody and to have sex as a teenager, knowing that you don't have a future. But the thing is, that's not Buffy and Angel's story. Buffy and Angel's story are madly, madly in love. And they're delaying the inevitable. And I think that that's that moment where Angel is like, maybe we shouldn't. It's not, he has this weird feeling like, oh, I'm going to have a moment of happiness and something bad's going to happen.
He doesn't know.
He knows long term, this is a bad idea. This will never work. And we see, even though we talk about that conversation doesn't really go anywhere, we see that in the very previous episode when he's talking about the future, when he's talking about Buffy not wanting kids or things like that. He knows that if he continues down this path with Buffy, it's only going to end badly for Buffy. And while I made the comment that there might have been more important stuff, the Xander speech about Buffy and Angel's future, while highly dramatized in Xander's favor, it is something that is the real deterrent here for Angel. That makes him not want to do this, to have that moment of hesitation. And this is where Buffy chooses to seize the moment. Because she has that other comment about, I may never feel this way again. And we see, in fact, that Buffy explains later on in season 7, when she's talking to Xander about Anya and having to take out Anya because she's a vengeance demon again, and Xander's all against her, and she's just like, I killed Angel. I loved him more than I will ever love anything in this life. So she doesn't ever feel this way again. So this sees the moment, this mentality that Buffy has, even if we don't have this future, even if this is our only chance, whatever, is not a bad philosophy for Buffy to have in this moment. Because again, as Giles explains at the end of the next episode, you could have never known that this is what was going to happen. You know, you two loved each other and you did what was natural for two people in love to do. So there's just a lot. I have said again and again, the Buffy-Angel relationship is not my personal favorite as far as my preferences when it comes to development of a relationship and the type of relationships I enjoy watching. But it is hugely, hugely important and makes an incredible foundation for these two characters who are the two most important characters in the Buffyverse, and I will stand by that. This shapes everything for both of them. And it all goes to hell next week.
Yes, badness next week. I have anxiety just thinking about next week's episode. Oh.
Okay, and so with that, Innocence next week. Be prepared. Thank y'all so much for listening, and this is where we say bye.
Bye.